Hey there, third graders. Today we are going to continue on with reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We are going to do chapters 21 and 22 in this video. Where we had left off, they just seen the gum getting made. So the gum had all of this liquid and like different colors, every color you can imagine, going into this machine, and it was frothing, which I described as bubbling. So it's getting all these bubbles, and then all of a sudden it all went into the machine, and out popped this very tiny drawer. And this drawer had a piece of gum. And I'm going to flash back to that picture, because I think that kind of helps you understand what is going on in this factory a little by seeing it. So here's all the liquid, and it comes down and makes this little drawer with a stick of gum. And Miss Violet Beauregard, who is our gum chewer, is very excited. Chapter 21 is called Goodbye, Violet. I want you to make a prediction on what you think is going to happen in this one. This gum, Mr. Wonka went on, is my latest, my greatest, my most fascinating invention. It's a chewing gum meal. It's that tiny little strip of gum laying right there. It's a whole 3-course dinner all by itself. What sort of nonsense is this? Said one of the fathers. My dear sir, cried Mr. Wonka, when I start selling this gum in the shops, it will change everything. It will be the end of all kitchens and all cooking. There will be no more marketing to do, no more buying of meat and groceries. There'll be no knives and forks at mealtimes, no plates, no washing up, no garbage, no mess. Just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum. And that's all you'll ever need at breakfast, lunch, and supper. This piece of gum I've just made happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. But you can have almost anything you want. So what he's saying is this piece of gum is a 3-course meal. So it can be any 3 courses that you want, and basically that's your meal for the day. So instead of going to get stuff for, say, lunch, maybe you're having a sandwich, chips, and ice cream. I don't know. Maybe those are your 3 things, your 3 courses, sandwich, chips, and ice cream. Instead of going and actually physically getting all those things and eating the sandwich, then eating the chips, and then eating the ice cream, you just pop this little stick of gum in your mouth, chew it, and that's it. No cooking, no cleaning, no nothing else. Just a piece of gum. Would you like that? Would you prefer, that could save a lot of time. You just quickly got a pop piece of gum in. It might be cool. I know personally I like to cook and I love eating. And I know some of you third graders, especially one in particular who I talk with every day, loves to eat also. And I would not want to give that up. But that's just me. But it might be helpful for some people. So that's what it is. It's 3-course. And he said the one that I have right here, the one that you just saw me make, is roast beef, tomato soup, and blueberry pie. Blueberry pie and gum sounds pretty good. I don't know how roast beef gum sounds to me. What do you mean it's tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie? Said Violet Beauregard. If you were to start chewing it, said Mr. Wonka, then that is exactly what you would get on the menu. It's absolutely amazing. You can actually feel the food going down your throat and into your tummy. And you can taste it perfectly, and it fills you up. It satisfies you. It's terrific. It's utterly impossible, said Veruca Salt. Just so long as it's gum, shouted Violet Beauregard. Just so long as it's a piece of gum and I can chew it, then that's for me. And quickly, she took her gum out of her mouth and stuck it behind her ear. Come on, Mr. Wonka, she said. Hand over the magic gum of yours, and we'll see if that thing works. Now, Violet, said Mrs. Beauregard, her mother, don't do anything silly, Violet. I want gum, said Violet. What's so silly? I would rather you didn't take it, Mr. Wonka told her gently. You see, I haven't gotten it quite right yet. There is still 1 or 2 things. Oh, who cares, said Violet, and suddenly, before Mr. Wonka could stop her, she shot out a fat hand and grabbed the stick of gum out of the little drawer and popped it in her mouth. At once, her huge, well-trained jaws started chewing away on the pair of tongs. Don't, said Mr. Wonka. fabulous, said Violet. It's tomato soup. It's hot and creamy and delicious. I can feel it running down my throat. So it's not just chewing gum. Like, it feels like she actually has the soup going down her throat. That's the magic of Wonka's candy. Stop, said Mr. Wonka. The gum isn't ready yet. It's not right. Of course it's right, said Violet. It's working beautifully. Oh my, what lovely soup this is. Spit it out, said Mr. Wonka. It's changing, shouted Violet, chewing and grinning, both at the same time. The second course is coming up. It's roast beef. It's tender and juicy. Oh boy, what a flavor. The baked potato is marvelous too. It's got crispy skin and it's filled with butter inside. But how interesting, Violet, said Miss Beauregard. You are a clever girl. Keep chewing, kiddo, said Mr. Beauregard. Keep right on chewing, baby. That's a great day for the Beauregards. Our little girl's the first person in the world to have a chewing gum meal. Everybody was watching Violet Beauregard as she stood chewing this extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips as they pressed and unpressed with the chewing. And Grandpa Joe stood beside him, gaping at the girl. Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands, saying, No, 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 no. It isn't for eating. It isn't right. You mustn't do it. Blueberry pie and cream, shouted Violet. Here it is. Oh my, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it. It's as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoonfuls of the most marvelous blueberry pie in the world. Good heavens, girl, shrieked Mrs. Beauregard suddenly, staring at Violet. What's happening to your nose? Oh, be quiet, Mother, and let me finish, said Violet. It's turning blue, screamed Mrs. Beauregard. Your nose, it's turning blue as a blueberry. Your mother is right, shouted Mr. Beauregard. Your whole nose has gone purple. What do you mean? Said Violet, still chewing away. Your cheeks, screamed Mrs. Beauregard. They're turning blue as well. So is your chin. Your whole face is turning blue. Spit that gum out at once, ordered Mr. Beauregard. Mercy, save us, yelled Mrs. Beauregard. The girl's going blue and purple all over. Even her hair is changing color. Violet, you're turning violet. Violet, what is happening to you? Violet's another word for like a bluish color. So Violet's turning violet. I told you I hadn't got it quite right, sighed Mr. Wonka, shaking his head sadly. I'll say you haven't, cried Mrs. Beauregard. Just look at the girl now. Everybody was staring at Violet, and what a terrible, strange sight she was. Her face and hands and legs and neck, in fact, the skin all over her body, as well as her great big mop of curly hair, had turned a brilliant purplish blue, the color of blueberry juice. It always goes wrong when it gets to the dessert, sighed Mr. Wonka. It's the blueberry pie that does it. But I'll get it right one day. You'll see. Violet, screamed Mrs. Beauregard. You're swelling up. I feel sick, Violet said. You're swelling up, screamed Mrs. Beauregard again. I feel most strange, gasped Violet. There's a picture on the next one. That's pretty good. I'm not surprised, said Mrs. Beauregard. Good heavens, girl, screeched Mrs. Beauregard. You're blowing up like a balloon. Like a blueberry, said Mr. Wonka. Call a doctor, shouted Mr. Beauregard. Prick her with a pin, said one of the other fathers. Save her, cried Mrs. Beauregard, wringing her hands. But there was no saving her now. Her body was swelling up and changing shape at such a rate that within a minute it had turned into nothing less than an enormous round blue ball. A gigantic blueberry, in fact, and all that remained of Violet Beauregard herself was a tiny pair of legs and a tiny pair of arms sticking out of a great round fruit and a little head on top. It always happens like that, sighed Mr. Wonka. I've tried it 20 times in the testing room on 20 Oompa Loompas, and every one of them finished up as a blueberry. It's most annoying. I just can't understand it. This is a picture I was laughing at. There's Violet. She is turning around like a blueberry and turning blue. And Mr. Wonka's not too concerned. He's like, my recipe's just going wrong. He's more concerned about his recipe being a failure or not making sense than what's going on with Violet. But I don't want a blueberry for a daughter, yelled Mrs. Beauregard. Put her back the way she was this instant. Mr. Wonka clicked his fingers, and 10 Oompa Loompas appeared immediately at his side. Roll Miss Beauregard into the boat, he said to them, and take her along to the juicing room at once. The juicing room? Cried Mrs. Beauregard. What are they going to do to her there? Squeeze her, said Mr. Wonka. We've got to squeeze the juice out of her immediately. After that, we'll just have to see how she comes out. But don't worry, my dear Miss Beauregard. We'll get her repaired if it's the last thing we do. I am sorry about it all. I really am. Already the 10 Oompa Loompas were rolling the enormous blueberry across the floor of the inventing room toward the door that led to the chocolate river where the boat was waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Beauregard hurried after them. The rest of the party, including little Charlie Bucket and Grandpa Joe, stood absolutely still and watched them go. Listen, whispered Charlie. Listen, Grandpa. The Oompa Loompas in the boat outside are starting to sing. The voices, 100 of them singing together, came loud and clear into the room. So remember when Augustus Gloop was sucked up the pipe, the Oompa Loompas sang a not-so-nice song about him, because they're mischievous, remember that. And here's Violet's song. Dear friends, we surely all agree, there's almost nothing worse to see than some repulsive little bum who's always chewing gum. It's very near as bad as those, it's a long one, who sit around and pick the nose. So please believe us when we say that chewing gum will never pay. This sticky habit's bound to send the chewer to a sticky end. Did any of you ever know a person called Miss Bigelow? This dreadful woman saw no wrong in chewing all day long. She chewed while bathing in the tub. She chewed while dancing at her club. She chewed in church and on the bus. It really was quite ludicrous. And when she couldn't find her gum, she'd chew up the linoleum, the flooring, or anything that happened near, a pair of boots, the postman's ear, or other people's underclothes. And once she chewed her boyfriend's nose. She went on chewing till at last her chewing muscles grew so vast that from her face her giant chin stuck out just like a violin, so stuck out like super far. For years and years she chewed away, consuming 50 packs a day, until one summer's eve at last a horrid business came to pass. Miss Bigelow went late to bed. For half an hour she lay and read, chewing and chewing all the while, like some great clockwork crocodile. At last she put her gum away upon a special little tray, and settled back. I'll try and get you to see this while I read. And settled back and went to sleep. She managed this by counting sheep. By now, how strange, and although she slept, those massive jaws of hers still kept on chewing through the night, even though there was nothing to bite. They were, you see, in such a groove they positively had to move, and very grim it was to hear, in pitch darkness loud and clear, this sleeping woman's great big trap opening and shutting, snap, snap, snap. Faster and faster, chop, 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 the noise went on, it wouldn't stop, until at last her jaws decide, trying to get you to see this, to pause and open extra wide, and with the most tremendous chew, they bit the lady's tongue in two. Thereafter, just from chewing gum, Miss Bigelow was always dumb, and spent her life shut up in some disgusting sanatorium. And that is why we'll try so hard to save Miss Violet Beauregard from suffering an equal fate. She's still quite young, it's not too late. Provided she survives the cure, we hope she does. We can't be sure. So that was their song about Miss Violet Beauregard, the chewing gum girl, who's now gone. So now we're down to 3 families. We got Charlie, Veruca Salt, who wants everything and wants her dad to get it now, and Mike TV, who loves to watch TV and has all the toy guns on him. Let's find out what happens then. Chapter 22 is called Along the Corridor. Corridor is like a hallway. Well, 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 sighed Mr. Wonka. 2 naughty little children gone, 3 good little children left. I think we'd better get out of this room quickly before we lose anyone else. But, Mr. Wonka, said Charlie anxiously, will Violet Beauregard ever be all right again, or will she always be a blueberry? They'll dejuice her in no time flat, declared Mr. Wonka. They'll roll her into the dejuicing machine, and she'll come out just as thin as a whistle. But will she still be blue all over? Asked Charlie. She'll be purple, cried Mr. Wonka, a fine, rich purple from head to toe. But there you are. That's what comes from chewing disgusting gum all day long. If you think gum is so disgusting, said Mike Teavee, then why do you make it in your factory? I do wish you wouldn't mumble, said Mr. Wonka. I can't hear a word you're saying. Come on, off we go. Hurry up, follow me. We're going to the corridors again. And so saying, Mr. Wonka scuttled across the far end of the inventing room and went out through a small secret door hidden behind a lot of pipes and stoves. The 3 remaining children, Veruca Salt, Mike Teavee, and Charlie Bucket, together with the 5 remaining grown-ups, followed after him. There they are, rushing out the door. I know what that was. Charlie Bucket saw that they were now back in one of those long pink corridors, with many other pink corridors leading out of it. Mr. Wonka was rushing along in front, turning left and right and left, and Grandpa Joe kept saying, "Keep a good hold of my hand, Charlie. It would be terrible to get lost in here." Mr. Wonka was saying, "No time for any more messing about. We'll never get anywhere at the rate we've been going." And on he rushed down the endless pink corridors with his black top hat perched on top of his head and his plum-colored velvet coattails flying behind him like a flag in the wind. They passed another door, and then another and another. There were doors every 20 feet or so along the corridor now, and they were all had something written on them. And strange clanking noises were coming from behind several of them, and delicious smells came wafting through the keyholes, and sometimes little jets of colored steam shot out from the cracks underneath. Grandpa Joe and Charlie were left running and half running and half walking to keep up with Mr. Wonka. But they were able to read what it said on quite a few of the doors as they hurried by. "Edible marshmallow pillows," it said on one. "Marshmallow pillows are terrific," shouted Mr. Wonka as he dashed by. "They'll be all the rage when I get them in the shops. No time to go in, though. No time to go in." "Lickable wallpaper for nurseries," it said on the next. "Lovely stuff, lickable wallpaper," said Mr. Wonka. "It has pictures of fruit on it. Bananas, apples, oranges, grapes, pineapples, strawberries, and snozberries." "Snozberries," said Mike Teavee. "Don't interrupt," said Mr. Wonka. "The wallpaper has pictures of all these fruit printed on it, and when you lick the picture of the banana, it tastes like a banana. When you lick the strawberry, it tastes like strawberry. When you lick a snozberry, it tastes like a snozberry." "But what does a snozberry taste like?" "You're mumbling again," said Mr. Wonka. "Speak louder next time. On we go. Hurry up." So, like little pictures, imagine walking into your bedroom and licking the wall, and it would taste like whatever you're licking. Strange. The next door it said, "Hot ice creams for cold days." "Extremely useful in the winter," said Mr. Wonka, rushing on. "Hot ice cream warms you up to no end in freezing weather. I also make hot ice cubes for putting in hot drinks. Hot ice cubes make hot drinks hotter." "Cows that give chocolate milk," it said on the next door. "Ah, my pretty little cows," cried Mr. Wonka. "How I love those cows!" "But why can't we see them?" asked Veruca Salt. "Why do we have to go rushing on past all these lovely rooms?" "We shall not stop in time," called Mr. Wonka. "Don't be so madly impatient." "Fizzy lifting drinks," it said on the next door. "Oh, those are fabulous," cried Mr. Wonka. "They fill you up with bubbles, and the bubbles are full of a special kind of gas. And this gas is so terrifically lifting that it lifts you right off the ground just like a balloon. And up you go until your head hits the ceiling, and there you stay." "But how do you come down again?" asked little Charlie. "You do a burp, of course," said Mr. Wonka. "You do a great big, long, rude burp, and up comes the gas, and down comes you. But don't drink it outdoors. There's no knowing how high up you'll be carried if you do that. I gave some to an old Oompa Loompa once in the backyard, and he went up, and disappeared out of sight. It was really sad. I never saw him again." "He should have burped," Charlie said. "Of course he should have burped," said Mr. Wonka. "I stood there shouting, 'Burp, you silly guy, burp, or you'll never come down again.' But he didn't, or couldn't, or wouldn't. I don't know which. Maybe he was too polite. He must be on the moon by now." On the next door it said, "Square candies that look round. Wait! Cried Mr. Wonka, skidding suddenly to a halt. I am very proud of my square candies that look round. Let's take a peek. And that's the end of the chapter. So we learned about Busy. Well, Violet Beauregarde, she's obviously gone. She was rolled away to the juicing room to be de-juiced because she ate the gum. Now, Mr. Wonka specifically gave the rules. Do not try anything. Do not touch anything. And I had told you, I don't think I could not touch something. But, of course, Violet Beauregarde grabbed the gum, ate it, said it was wonderful, but then turned into a giant blueberry. So she did not follow the directions and ended up turning into a blueberry. They rolled her out to the de-juicing. We had a lovely song from the Oompa Loompas. And then we continued on through a corridor or a long hallway that's lined with more doors on both sides. And they say all these fantastic rooms, like the marshmallow pillows and fizzy drinks that lift you up. And these drinks, when you drink it, you can basically fly. It just lifts you up, and up. And the only way to come down is to burp, burp, burp. And he said he tried with the Oompa Loompa and he didn't burp and he just went away and he's probably on the moon now. So he has all these crazy rooms and he stops at a room that has square candies that look round. Now, how can you be a square candy? I'm going to do my best to make like a square. It's not working that well. A square candy. So imagine a square. Here. Just gotta wait. You can get an up-close picture of my face while I get some sticky notes. Square. How can this look round? So how can a square candy look round? We'll find out in the next chapter, because the next chapter is actually called Square Candies That Look Round. But you need to do the comprehension questions first for these chapters, and then we'll learn more about these random, weird square candies. Find out what that means. We still have 3 kids, or we now have 3 kids. Veruca Salt, the rude one, Mike TV, who loves TV and has guns, and then Charlie Bucket, our main character. And Mr. Wonka called the other 2 kids naughty or bad kids, and he's got 3 good kids left. If you've seen the movie, you kind of know what's going to happen. But just think, do you think it's all going to go well for the rest of them? Keep up the great work. I really do miss all of you. And I can't wait till we're back at school next year and learning together. But I hope you are enjoying this book. We are over halfway done with it. Look at that. Over halfway. So we're getting close to the end. Let me know if you have any questions, and keep up the great work. Bye.